It's morphin' time! Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome to the Star Wars Viewing Guide. We're going to be going over everything for Star Wars in the realm of movies and TV shows and video games and a couple books and comics and a few theme park rides. I will make sense of all this. This is the essentials of Star Wars, explained to you one section at a time. This is an ongoing series on the channel, which I've done with many franchises, and since The Mandalorian Grogu coming up is the most recent Star Wars movie after a 7-year hiatus in theaters, when better a time to do a Star Wars viewing guide. So we have a lot to talk about, as you would imagine, with the existence of Star Wars. Over the past nearly 50 years, there has been a lot of material. So today's guide is going to be very focused in on the movie and TV show part of things, though I have added some extras in it. There will not be a complete guide of every video game, comic book, promotional comic book, theme park experience. I'm not doing absolutely everything, because if I try to put all that into a video, most of you out there won't care about like 80% of it, and also it would be like 7 hours long. So we're not doing that. What we're going to do today is focus in on the movies and TV shows for Star Wars specifically, and stuff that is closely adjacent to it. Though I have made the decision that I have included all the video games that are canon and are story-driven, because there's like 4 of them, so might as well, right? I've also made the decision to exclude the LEGO TV specials and series, because there are so many of those that could practically be its own guide video. Let's see how this one does before we get ahead of ourselves. But in terms of the core experience of Star Wars and the core story, that's what we're talking about today. So before we begin, be sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and the notification bell if you haven't already. Hit the hype button if it's available to you. All those things help the channel and help me know that you all enjoyed all the hard work that went into making this guide. So when it comes to how you should watch Star Wars, first of all, pretty much everything is available on Disney Plus, unless I say otherwise, but I will mention that. Star Wars on physical media does exist through some in the backdrop, but it's not very good at staying in print and not very good at covering everything, so that again feels like its own video, so we'll kind of cover it there. But I will mention when something is on Disney Plus and when it isn't, because that is basically the one and only place to watch Star Wars on streaming, and it is also the easiest place to watch Star Wars on streaming. So we're going to do that as well. We're going to be focusing on canon material, like I said, but I'm going to include non-canon stuff that is for TV shows and movies that are not canon officially, because I kind of have some thoughts on some of them, so we will be including that. And everything will be story and narrative driven. So there's some web series, there's some other little side things that are like, listen to the sounds of a ship. That's not included. I'm focusing on things that have a story to be told. Now, in terms of watching Star Wars, how is the best way to watch it? This is a big debate on the internet and has been for many years. It's like, what is the best order to watch Star Wars? In my personal opinion, I think if it's your first time, you should watch things in release order. Because while they don't take place in the order they released in, stuff starts to inform on itself in a way. So you have, what's a good example? The Maul Shadow Lord TV show. Like, you don't have to know what happens to Maul after that show, but if you do, you can start to kind of make some connections and bridge things together, because the creators are looking at, we know where this character goes from here, so we can kind of seed and lay things in. So it's not a necessity, but you kind of get some more experience from it. But the big thing in terms of watching order, if you've never seen the original Star Wars films, if you've never watched anything Star Wars, the first thing you should do is watch the 9 movies. But very specifically in a certain order, release order. You want to start with Episode 4, A New Hope, Episode 5, An Empire Strikes Back, and Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Those 3 movies are the original trilogy of Star Wars. They're the backbone of the franchise, but you really should watch those before watching the prequels, because yes, it does start with Episode 4, but basically every major plot twist in Episodes 4, 5, and 6 it won't feel like plot twists if you've seen Episodes 1, 2, and 3. They were made in this order, so watch them in this order. 4, 5, and 6. Then following that, you can go with Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Obviously, all those take place prior to the original trilogy, but kind of flows together as a nice narrative. And then after you've done that, the sequel trilogy with Episode 7, The Force Awakens, Episode 8, The Last Jedi, and Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Those 9 movies are known as the Skywalker Saga, and they are the backbone of the franchise. Every single thing I go to tell you about for movies and TV shows and expanded material spins out of one of those 9 movies. So if you've never watched Star Wars before, your current homework, and there will be homework, this is the homework franchise, go watch those 9 movies in release order. 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. Go watch those, then come back if you're hungry for more. And don't let any of those movies dissuade you from watching more Star Wars, because while you may not like certain movies or certain stories the way they go, or even certain characters, expanded material in Star Wars, like the TV shows in particular, might give you a better appreciation of characters, or a character that basically had a couple lines of dialogue and looked cool in a single movie could end up as your favorite Star Wars character of all time. So don't let anything in those movies dissuade you from exploring the franchise further. And I think you should go watch all 9. Then you can come back to this guide, because I don't want to spoil those movies for you if you've never seen them, but I'm going to have to in order to place all the other material. So have fun, go see the Skywalker Saga, and come back here and we're going to talk about the rest of the material. So now, anyone continuing further, I have assumed that you either saw those 9 movies or do not care to watch them, but that is your choice, and we're going to continue forward. If you're ever rewatching Star Wars, the best way to rewatch it, in my opinion, would be chronologically. I personally kind of have used to do this sort of frequently. When there was less movies and shows, I would just kind of go back and I'd watch all the shows and order with the movies. Really fun time, and it probably is even more fun now that the timeline's more filled out. So what we're going to be doing in the guide is, after I go over the release order of everything, I'm going to then provide a chronological order. That is done off of my knowledge, my notes, and Star Wars' weird date system that I don't like too much, but I'll explain it when we get down to the chronological order. But basically, I'm using information that exists and also making some judgment calls to have a chronological viewing experience. Because the kind of nature of an expanded franchise is that if you want a pure chronological experience, you're going to have to pause a movie, go watch this thing, pause this episode, go watch this episode, pause that, come back over here. And trying to explain that in a video is not conducive for viewership. So we're going to focus on what order you could watch them in if you're trying to get a chronological order. So like I said, we're going to cover the movies, the TV shows, the video games that are canon, story-driven. We're going to only cover a couple comics and novels, and they are related to the Clone Wars, and I'll explain why those are in here. Obviously, from, again, backdrop, I put a lot of comics in here. I love Star Wars comics. They're really fun. Star Wars novels have been a thing, again, for 50 years. There's a lot of great stories there, a bunch non-canon, a bunch canon. They fit all over the timeline. I feel like if I wanted to expand this idea of a topic, I could cover all the Star Wars comics and where they fit in the timeline, but that's for another day. We can't include it in here. We got to get this thing kind of focused in and really get you going on what you need. And that's also another thing I'm going to be doing in this segments, is I'm going to go through each show and tell you what is going to be prior viewing necessary for that show. Because not every show is going to require you having seen all of Star Wars. But some of them will have required you to see a previous series, so I'm going to give that information to you all as well. So let's begin. We're going to start with release order and go through everything from the first Star Wars movie up until what is coming out in the future. Let's start where it all began, with the May 25th, 1977 release of Star Wars. Heralded as one of the greatest films of all time, and the thing that saved the science fiction genre. It spawned one of the biggest franchises ever, and it's a pretty great movie. This was such an interesting story in a production sense. I just wanted to kind of give some trivia for these movies, because I'm going to assume you've already seen A New Hope. The movie itself was something where George Lucas looked like a crazy person, and he showed it around to people to get input, and he couldn't get a studio to pick it up. Finally just got it going eventually in a last-ditch effort, and now it's Star Wars, and it's ever present for the rest of time. It's really incredible to think that it almost never happened. It's always kind of wild. But anyways, for those wondering, when the film was originally released, it was just titled Star Wars. The Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope title, which is what it's referred to now and forever since, came with the April 1981 theatrical re-release. And that is because Empire Strikes Back, on the title card, on the poster, it says, Empire Strikes Back, but on the title card for the text crawl, it said Star Wars Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. So they added the tag Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, onto the movie in April 1981. Now, the fun part about the New Hope title is it's got kind of like a dual meaning, because first of all, it's supposed to be a new hope because the rebellion finally gets a step up on the Empire, but it's also because Star Wars as a film sort of shifted 70s cinema out of its dark, depressing, gritty sense and started giving people hopeful, happy, futuristic stories to work with, and it kind of spawned some more. It brought Star Trek back, for example, because studios saw, oh, Star Wars made money. What can we do that could do the same thing? And that's how Star Trek got movies. So, A New Hope is kind of a dual meaning of a title, and I think that's really, really cool. Now, in January 1997, the film was re-released for its 20th anniversary as the Special Edition, and this is where George Lucas would start to make changes to the film. He wasn't happy with any of the original trilogy films, how they originally turned out. There were certain technology limitations, certain things he wanted to do, certain continuity he wanted cleaned up, and basically from 1997 all the way up to 2011, he kept making tweaks on almost every release of the film after. Now, this is controversial, of course. Some people love the original theatrical, some people like the changes, some people like some of the changes, some people are only familiar with the versions with the changes. It's a whole topic to discuss on another time, but the special editions began in '97, which also started a bit of a resurgence for Star Wars because they were getting ready to do the prequel trilogy, kind of wanted to get the original trilogy movies out there before rolling into the prequels. So it's a bit of a marketing push, but that was the beginning of those versions. Now, the original theatrical version of Star Wars has not seen re-release since Special Edition. They kind of keep in circulation whatever is the most current version of the movie and not offer a lot of options at the moment. Another variation of the movie came in 2003 when the original trilogy movies aired on TV in Chile. The beer company Cerveza Cristal ran a very clever campaign where instead of going straight to ad breaks from the movie, they would film new scenes of the characters reaching for a Cerveza Cristal into the ad, and then it would run into the ad break. Absolutely brilliant ad campaign. This ended up going viral like a couple years ago, but the fun part about this is it's a modified version of the movie for TV, but I gotta tell you, it's way less jarring to get a commercial break in a movie when they lead into it in kind of a cute and funny way than if you just hard cut to a commercial. So who can hate it? George Lucas didn't like it, and I can understand why. 2011 saw the most changes done in the modern era, and then the 2019 4K release had a couple little changes and a couple little additions, but that is the version currently available on Disney Plus, is the 2019 4K version. But the exciting part for fans of that original theatrical version, there is a promised 2027 theatrical IMAX re-release of the theatrical version, supposedly with none of the changes. It's been in rumors for a while, seems like it's finally happening for the 50th anniversary, and hopefully a 4K Blu-ray collection comes later. I imagine they're doing all three movies and not just the first one, but that'll be nice to see the original version of the film brought to full resolution in its 4K format. Alright, enough about a movie that a lot of people have seen. Let's talk about one of the most infamous things in Star Wars ever, the November 17th, 1978 release of the Star Wars Holiday Special. Now, this has got so much history behind it, but let me give you the cliff notes. So, in 1978, the popularity of Star Wars was making everybody frenzy. They're like, we gotta do Star Wars stuff, we can make so much money off this. And George Lucas was working towards production of Empire Strikes Back, and didn't really want to do any additional stuff. But, of course, TV networks are gonna roll in and say, let's do something. And so the first televised thing for Star Wars was the 1978 Holiday Special. This is a variety special. And variety specials were all the rage in the 70s, so kind of fit. So you're going to have comedy, you're going to have musical performances, variety of topics. But it did have a through line narrative, and that is that Chewbacca is trying to get home for the Holiday of Life Day, which is very important to the Wookiees. Han Solo's trying to get him there. You're probably wondering, well, how was it then? It aired once on TV and has never been officially released ever since. That being said, there are plenty of bootleg copies out there. You can definitely find it with ease. The fun part about the Holiday Special is that George Lucas wasn't directly involved in production, but he did kind of pull the plug on releasing it after seeing it. It was pretty much panned by most people watching it, and people find it terrible. That being said, there's a couple fun things about this. First of all, fans have started to embrace it a little bit, and also things are canon. So while the special is definitely 100% not canon, Chewbacca's family has appeared in canon materials. The Holiday of Life Day is not only canon, but is an event at Disney parks now, and the character that B. Arthur plays is canon. So there's a reason to watch it for that alone. Let's talk about the segments in the Variety Special, because I think there's some interesting things in here. So first of all, throughout the special, Art Carney plays a traitor who's trying to help Chewbacca's family, who's being interrogated by the Empire, because Chewbacca's officially part of the rebels and helped blow up the Death Star, so they're kind of looking for him. The interesting part, too, is we had Harvey Korman in several comedy shorts. So the Chef Gourmanda short is Harvey Korman playing a space version of Julia Child. I just don't know anything else to say about this besides stir, whip, 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 stir, whip. In This Minute Now, Diane Carroll performs a virtual musical number for Chewbacca's father while he looks like he's enjoying it maybe a little too much. Jefferson Starship performed Light the Sky on Fire as a hologram music video. Probably the most well-known segment in this, The Faithful Wookiee, is an animated segment involving the Star Wars characters where they encounter the character of Boba Fett, who makes his first on-screen appearance. He was also debuted in a parade at some point, but Boba Fett's first actual on-screen appearance is in The Faithful Wookiee. Now, this animated short was also produced by Nelvana Entertainment, who would later go on to do the Droids and Ewoks cartoon series, so that was kind of where that connection was established. And seems to be the thing that George Lucas was cool with, and most people think is the best segment from the holiday special. And that is because you can actually watch this one officially. It was produced as a bonus feature on some Blu-rays as an Easter egg, but it is available on Disney Plus as The Faithful Wookiee. So yeah, you can actually just watch that one officially. It's the thing that's held on the best over time. But then we have my favorite segment of this. I prefer this over the animated one, which is Good Night But Not Goodbye. So the cantina from Mos Eisley from A New Hope is seen again, and we learn that the owner of that establishment is a character played by B. Arthur. And in this segment, the Empire shuts her bar down for a curfew and says, everybody's got to get out, you're closed for business. And it's one of the first times, if not the first time, that we see the Empire's impact on the average person in the galaxy. The Empire comes in and shuts this place down and has everybody go home, and B. Arthur sings a musical number about how this may be goodbye, but this may be good night, but this is not goodbye, because she hopes everybody can come back at some point. But it's kind of harrowing and very emotional and honestly really well done. People talk about the animated segment being the best part of the holiday special, but honestly, I feel like this is. It has the most emotional impact, I think, out of anything in the special. Naturally, because this thing is universally panned for a reason, the next major segment involved Harvey Korman playing an android alien explaining how to repair a piece of technology, and it goes on way too long. And then at the end, the most bizarre thing of the entire special is the Life Day celebration, where Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia sings a song to the tune of the Star Wars theme. Just in case you want to make sure this wasn't canon, yeah, there you go. It's not canon, but some of it is. That's my little tribute to the holiday special. People should take a look at it. There is some weird stuff in there, and it definitely doesn't work as a whole, but there's some segments that I honestly find pretty charming. Now, of course, Star Wars returned in a big way with the May 21st, 1980 release of Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, known on its title card as Star Wars Episode V: Empire Strikes Back. This, of course, was the follow-up sequel. If you followed the rules of the guide, you've already seen it. It's probably my... It's funny, I say this is the best of the original trilogy movies, even though I like Return of the Jedi a little bit more, personally. It's an incredible movie and created the cliffhanger sequel for a lot of franchises. Every time a movie is really successful and they're like, let's make 2 more, everybody kind of uses the format that Empire Strikes Back set up, which I think is kind of fun. This, of course, was re-released in 1987, 2004, 2011, and 2019 on different home video formats with different changes. Then after that dramatic cliffhanger, you had to wait 3 whole years because May 25th, 1983 saw the release of Star Wars: Return of the Jedi, which was Star Wars Episode VI, Return of the Jedi, on its title card. Just like with the Empire Strikes Back release, 1997, 2004, 2011, 2019, every major release had a new change. Now, Star Wars was a hot property, but Lucas wasn't about to go do another trilogy, So the licensing began, and we had several things in the 80s capitalizing on the success of Star Wars and aiming things directly at kids. Starting with November 25th, 1984, the Ewok Adventure, also known as Caravan of Courage and Ewok Adventure. This was a TV movie that had limited international theatrical release, and it's set sometime after Return of the Jedi, after the Rebels leave Endor, and this family gets stranded on Endor, and these two kids are separated from their parents, and they have to go through an adventure, and they meet Wicket, and they have to go fight things. And then one of them whines a whole lot, and it's the older kid, which is an interesting twist. But anyways, it's a fun, family-friendly adventure. Now, this is not canon, and never really was, but officially speaking, the Lucasfilm Story Group, who kind of follows the rules of canon and decides what is and isn't, they say that people can reference this in writing, and it even got referenced in a recent Ewok comic. I think they referenced the Caravan of Courage directly, so it's not canon, but it could be if you want it to be. It's not required viewing, but if you want to see it, it's there. It's also available on Disney+, which is really nice. So in September 7th, 1985, two TV shows debuted as part of the Ewoks and Droids Adventures Hour. First of all, Star Wars Droids, The Adventures of R2-D2 and C-3PO. This was a TV series that ran for one season of 13 episodes and a separate hour-long TV special. This is set approximately 4 years after Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and follows the adventures of C-3PO and R2-D2 as they get kind of passed around between different owners. They're in kind of a chaotic little situation. The interesting part about this is that the 13 episodes is actually broken up into arcs. Episodes 1 to 4 is part of the Trigon 1 story arc. Episodes 5 to 9 is part of the Mon Jupla arc. Then after episode 9 is the Great Heap TV special that aired in 1986. That's where that takes place. And then the last group of episodes, 10 to 13, is The Adventures of Mungo Baobab. And this show's fun. It's a big adventure show. R2 and 3PO are getting into trouble again. The theme song's really catchy. The lyric is literally like, "We're in trouble again." So, yeah, droids shouldn't be overlooked. I feel like a lot of people do, including myself. I actually will admit I only started watching this show to do research for this guide, and I really like it. It's fun. Now, just like the Ewok TV movies, this is officially not canon, but they did have a canon explanation of why R2 and 3PO got separated, and it was like an Empire attack happened, and they got separated from Captain Antilles, and this show is like them trying to get back. If you want to fit it in, you can. It is available entirely on Disney+, including the TV special. Premiering the same day in 85 was Star Wars Ewoks, which actually lasted a little bit longer, probably was a little bit more successful. Ewok Mania was the thing. This lasted for 2 seasons of 26 episodes. Season 1 was 13 episodes in 1985, aired as part of the Ewoks and Droids Adventure Hour with Droids. And then Season 2 was called the All-New Ewoks, and that was 13 episodes in 1986. And the episodes were broken up into 2 segments. So the first season is all 22-minute episodes. The second season is mostly 11-minute episodes paired together with a couple 22-minute episodes. Interestingly enough, there was 2 compilation movies put to VHS. That was The Haunted Village and Tales from the Endor Woods, taking 4 episodes each, combining them together. So this is set prior to Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. The Ewoks are on adventures. There's some slight inconsistencies. We don't hear the Ewoks speak the basic language of the galaxy in Return of the Jedi. Here they do, because it's a TV show, it's for kids, you're not going to have subtitles the entire time. But basically the Ewoks are on adventures, they're fighting villains, they're doing kind of crazy shenanigans. It's a fun 80s action cartoon. It's actually got a lot more action than you think it would. It actually is quite a bit of peril for a show about Ewoks. Now, that being said, if you're wondering for canon connections, Battle for the Sunstar involves the Empire and starts to kind of lay the groundwork of how the Empire would establish a base on Endor, as we saw in Return of the Jedi. So if you wanted to watch one Ewoks episode with the canon connections, that's the one to check out. The entire series is available on Disney+. Just like with Droids, it's not officially canon, but you can fit it in the timeline if you so wish. Now, on November 24th, 1985, a second Ewoks TV special aired with Ewoks, The Battle for Endor. Now, this is a direct sequel to Caravan of Courage. Now, Caravan of Courage was very upbeat, it was light, it was fun. These 2 kids need to find their family. Ewoks Battle for Endor starts with the entire family is murdered on screen, and the little girl is now an orphan, and she meets a nice old man in the forest, and they team up together to fight witches. It's very hardcore, honestly. The first scene is horrifying and might be one of the most dramatic scenes in Star Wars until Andor came around. It's really, actually, it's a minor spoiler, but it's in the first scene. This movie goes hard. And honestly, I think watching this made me happy that I watched the first one, because the second one's just kind of insane. Much like the first one, it's not canon, but can be officially referenced in canon materials if they so wish, and you can find it on Disney+. I honestly do. If you don't even watch the whole thing, just watch that opening sequence, because it's insane to say the Ewok movie opens with a massacre. So after Ewok, The Battle for Endor, there was no Star Wars movies or TV shows until 1999. Or technically 1997 with the special editions. But there was nothing for 15 years. So, what was in the meantime? The January 9th, 1987 opening of Star Tours at Disneyland. This was the first ever Star Wars themed attraction, and this thing is such a legacy for not only Star Wars, but for theme parks in general. So, Star Tours was originally, when they started working on a ride, they wanted a science fiction ride, thinking about motion simulators, and going to be based on the black hole. That's not the movie that has any prestige compared to Star Wars. Black hole's nice and all. It's just kind of funny. They thought, we got to make something. We're going to make a black hole ride. But anyways, they've been working with George Lucas on attractions like Captain EO and said, hey, what about Star Wars instead? And Star Tours was born. So this is a innovative motion simulator ride that so many other motion simulator rides are actually directly based on. And this ride, opening January 9th, 1987, was a single story where you're on an adventure. You're supposed to be going on a transport ship known as Star Tours, kind of like a luxury cruiser, like a mid-range cruiser, not even luxury, just a mid-range cruiser. It's kind of like getting on an airplane. The whole queue and the ride itself just feels like you're at an airport. And of course, the plucky R-Series droid pilot isn't very good at his job. And so he gets you lost, because you're supposed to be going to Endor. And you end up fighting the Empire and going through all kinds of chaos. The ride film itself was done with practical models and stop motion, and is pretty iconic. Now, the demand for Star Tours was insanely high, and so Disneyland stayed open for 60 hours straight to make sure they could meet demand. That is impressive, especially because they had multiple motion simulators in the building, so they were just rotating through, but people were there all the time for riding Star Tours, and that's honestly a pretty cool footnote in history. Now, due to the popularity of Star Tours, it was cloned at multiple Disney theme parks across the planet. Tokyo Disneyland got one July 12th, 1989. Disney MGM Studios, now known as Hollywood Studios, got one December 15th, 1989. Euro Disneyland, which is now known as Disneyland Paris, opened theirs April 12th, 1992. Now, unfortunately, the original Star Tours did close July 26, 2010 in Disneyland to be replaced by an updated version of the ride. We'll talk about it when we get to it. That is the version that's currently standing now. Hollywood Studios closed there September 7, 2010, Tokyo on April 1st, 2012, and Paris held out till March 16th, 2016. So, much like with some of the stuff we've been talking about, Star Tours is officially not canon, but the R-Series droids, which, you know, I've got toys of, have been showing up and stuff lately, because I think Star Tours nostalgia is hitting the production side of things. And also the Star Tours vehicle and the concept of Star Tours has appeared in canon material as well. If you're wanting to look for a video of the original Star Tours ride, there are amateur videos and fan videos online of it. No official video has been released. Released May 19th, 1999, the big return to Star Wars was Star Wars Episode I, The Phantom Menace. Coming out to mixed results critically, reception-wise and fan reception-wise, but birthing a new era of Star Wars that a lot of people look fondly at. Because I think the thing about Star Wars that I find very interesting and honestly really cool is that it has a generational quality to it. There's a group of people that love the original trilogy and everything to do with it. There's a group of people that love the prequel trilogy and everything to do with it. And a group of people that love the sequel trilogy and everything to do with it. And I'm sure there's going to be a group that are just like very Mando focused. That's the cool part about Star Wars. The Phantom Menace, of course, was one of the movies I told you to watch already, so you know what happens. Here's some interesting fun tidbits about the movie's re-releases over time. So its November 2001 DVD release is actually an extended cut of the movie. In theaters, the pod racing sequence was trimmed. The version on home video that came out immediately was the full extended version. It was supposed to be like the chariot race in Ben-Hur. It's supposed to be long and lengthy and take a chunk of the movie. So the actual version that was in theaters hasn't been actually released on home video from what I know. There may be some obscure release of it, but they typically have only used that extended cut for everything since. Now in 2012, they re-released Phantom Menace in 3D. They were planning to do the other 5 movies, and they canceled those plans after Disney bought the franchise, probably because I think the 3D conversion was expensive, and they did not make their money back on Phantom Menace, which is kind of a bummer. I kind of like the idea of re-releasing movies in theaters. I actually love it and support it heavily. And so for a long time, they wouldn't do that with Star Wars, where they used to do it all the time in the 80s. They would re-release Star Wars every few years to see it in theaters. We start to get that more now, but it'd be nice to, kind of do it more regularly. Because I saw Phantom Menace I think I saw it in an RPX theater for its 25th anniversary, and that was really cool because I hadn't seen it in a theater since I was like 4. May 16th, 2002, after long waited, is the Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. This is the second movie in the prequel trilogy. Very interesting, similar kind of production details to this one. The DVD release has extended dialogue from the theatrical. That's the version we've seen in circulation ever since. It's kind of interesting that they were making changes to the prequels almost immediately. Like, the home video didn't even come out with the original theatrical release. They're just like, we need to change this a little bit. We need to put the pod race stuff back in. Kind of interesting to see that happen, because that doesn't really happen that much anymore. Now, one of the complaints people have with watching the prequel trilogy, which is totally valid, is that Attack of the Clones shows the beginning of the Clone Wars, the opening battle, and Revenge of the Sith starts the end of the Clone Wars. What about the Clone Wars itself? The movies kind of skip over it. Totally valid. Now, if you were somebody that was either a kid or adult or just a fan in general, when Attack of the Clones came out, Lucasfilm and their partners were bombarding you with material constantly. I felt like I lived the Clone Wars. That 3-year gap between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith was packed with comics and toys and video games and books and Go-Gurt promotions and 2003's Clone Wars animated series. Now, this series premiered November 7th, 2003, and was made to bridge the gap between the movies. So while there was books, comics, toys, etc. going on to tell all the stories of the Clone Wars, the major ones were told in Clone Wars. Just Clone Wars, which was a 2D animated series produced by Genndy Tartakovsky of Samurai Jack and other fame, and this series was on Cartoon Network. And it was everything for a kid watching Star Wars and waiting for the next movie. You got to live the Clone Wars. It was amazing. Also, this is incredibly high quality, so it's still amazing. Season 1 was 10 episodes, which were 3 to 5 minutes apiece, airing in 2003. There was a second season of 10 episodes that were 3 to 5 minutes apiece in 2004. And then Season 3 was only 5 episodes, but those were 12 to 15 minutes apiece, because they got to do some longer storytelling at that point. So this is perfectly bridging the gap between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, because you're seeing the last scene of Attack of the Clones in this art style, and the last scene of Revenge of the Sith is right at the beginning, or actually the last scene of Clone Wars is right at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. Got a little mixed up there. But basically, this perfectly bridges the gap. The interesting part, too, is that these were released as compilation films on DVD, with the first 20 episodes as Volume 1, and the second and the last 5 episodes done as Volume 2. So if you wanted to do a Star Wars movie watch, and you didn't want to watch a ton of extra Clone Wars stuff, you could just put on this as a movie. Those two together is like a 2-hour block. Really fun. I used to do that all the time, because that was just kind of like, you watch Attack of the Clones, you watch 2D Clone Wars, then you watch Revenge of the Sith. It strings together nicely. All right, so now we come into the fun part. It's not canon, officially. Sort of. So here's the weird thing. This series was produced while they were making Revenge of the Sith. That means characters like General Grievous appear in very much concept art and early production note form. That means the series doesn't line up with canon. There's also some weird inconsistencies when it comes to the Clone Wars series that we're going to talk about next, which was the CG animated one that ran a lot longer. Now, that being said, that second Clone Wars series never retells a single story from this. So if you're wanting to know, how did Asajj Ventress become Count Dooku's apprentice? That's in here. How did Anakin get his scar? That's in here. How did Anakin become a Jedi Knight? Also in here. How was Palpatine kidnapped? In here. All of this stuff is not ever retold in another form. It's only presented in this form, including the debut of General Grievous. While he acts, looks, and feels different than he does in his canon appearance, the story of him appearing still is canon. The thing about this series is that it was just couldn't be canon without being made after Revenge of the Sith, because they were making a movie while making this cartoon. But that being said, a lot of people write it off as non-canon, and I say you should watch it. Watch the entire series, then go and watch The Clone Wars. Because they don't line up 100% continuity-wise, but when you go to watch The Clone Wars later, they know Ventress already. Anakin's already a Jedi Knight. Where was those stories told? They were told here. Also, it's phenomenal animation and really great storytelling, and you really can't go wrong with it. Alright, so moving along, May 19, 2005 saw the release of Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and millions of children across the planet cried out in agony because the Jedi that we had been hyped up to know and love through toys and comics and books and a really cool Go-Gurt promotion all get massacred in front of us. It's been 21 years, I'm still not over it. Anyways, I gotta give a shout out to ILM's work on Revenge of the Sith, because when they put out the 4K release, the ILM effects just seemed like they were in native 4K somehow. It looks the best out of all the prequel movies on the 4K release. Now, following the success of the prequel trilogy, which was successful even if there was a ton of backlash and hatred of the movies, it was pretty financially successful. And so Lucasfilm started a new venture into Lucasfilm Animation, and they started working on a Clone Wars TV show. The micro series, the 2D show itself, was kind of like a test bed of, could we do a Clone Wars animated series? The answer was yes. It couldn't always be as crazy stylized as Genndy Tartakovsky's style, but you definitely could do it in an art style that would evolve and change over the next 18 years into something beautiful. And so in August 15th, 2008, The Clone Wars was released in theaters. So the Clone Wars animated series was going along. George Lucas thought, wow, this looks really great. It may not be exactly like Pixar or Hayao Miyazaki, but this looks really good. Let's put it on a theater screen. I saw this movie in theaters. This is animation made for television. It's still really good, but blown up to a movie screen doesn't look as good. And if you put Maul Shadow Lord or some of the Tales stuff on the movie screen, probably look better, but this, kind of a yikes. It's the lowest grossing Star Wars movie of all time, and they basically just don't acknowledge it. But it is important to note, this was originally 4 episodes of The Clone Wars, a 3-episode arc and a flashback episode that would have been known as The New Padawan, Castle of Deception, Castle of Doom, and Castle of Salvation. This was episodes, and then they turned it into a movie. Not a horrible idea, just not quite what people expected. That being said, still a solid movie, and this introduces one of the most prominent new characters into Star Wars, Ahsoka Tano, the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker. This, of course, is available on Disney+, and if you're wanting to watch The Clone Wars, it is essential viewing. Again, release order is totally fine here. That is the beginning of a new Clone Wars era. The series would then follow on October 3rd, 2008, and last for 7 seasons of 133 episodes, the longest-running Star Wars show to date. So let's break it down. Season 1 was 22 episodes starting in 2008. Season 2 was known as Rise of the Bounty Hunters and was 22 episodes starting in 2009. Season 3, Secrets Revealed, 22 episodes 2010. Season 4, Battle Lines, 22 episodes from 2011. Season 5 was only 20 episodes and aired in 2012. Season 6 was known as The Lost Missions, was 13 episodes from 2014, and Season 7 was the final season with 12 episodes from 2020. Let's talk about what happened here. First things first. Unlike every other Star Wars thing where I say watch in release order, there is an alternative option you have to watching The Clone Wars that I think improves the experience significantly. The chronological order. See, Clone Wars episodes are made very standalone, sometimes little arcs, and so they would kind of go back and be like, oh, let's do another episode with those. Let's do another episode with those. Let's do another episode of that. And it was almost intentionally done out of order to begin with. And while you can watch it exactly in release order, and that's totally valid and totally fine, I really do say go watch it in chronological order. You'll do yourself a favor and not worry about confusion when dead characters suddenly appear without an explanation. So, the fun part is I don't even have to come up with this on my own. The StarWars.com website, which I'll put a link in the description, has the official chronological order. I've also screen capped it on screen here in case they take that web page down at any point in the future and people are like, what was the order? Also, fun fact, back in the day before this website existed and Clone Wars only had 5 seasons, they put out a physical book of the chronological order, and I have it somewhere. It's a side somewhere. I can't figure out where I put it because I don't need to refer to it because it's also out of date and missing 2 seasons, but this is the official chronological order, and we'll be referring to it in my chronological order down the line. So, there you go. All right, production fun facts. You're probably wondering, why was Season 7 6 years after Season 6? Well, that's because Seasons 1 to 5 were produced for and by Cartoon Network. It was a co-production, Warner Brothers was involved, and Lucasfilm was producing the show. When Disney bought Lucasfilm in 2012, they said, hey, we don't want a show of our new IP we spent $4 billion on airing on a competitor's network. So they pulled it. Clone Wars was taken off air, though the final episode that aired would be a good finale if it had to be the finale. That being said, they had already had Season 6 and 7 in production at this point, and Season 6 had 13 episodes already completed airing. They aired in Germany in 2014 and then later showed up on Netflix everywhere else after that. That was why it was called The Lost Missions. That wasn't a complete season, though. There's a bunch of episodes that weren't finished. Now, fans demanded a Season 7 of Clone Wars, and after Disney Plus existed, Disney finally let in and said, all right, here's your Season 7 of 12 episodes, which released in 2020. The entire series is available on Disney Plus, and you can use that chronological guide and go through it chronologically. I do rarely recommend chronological order for Clone Wars, even if it's your first time watching. So, you guys like doing homework? Start taking notes. The Clone Wars Legacy was a project launched in 2014 with the intention of continuing the Clone Wars when the series was canceled. So, fun fact, a bunch of arcs were in production and probably already written, and so instead of waiting to see if they'd ever get renewed, because they kind of were told it's never happening, they decided to put them out in other media. That's what I was talking about when I said we got to include some comics and novels. Let's begin. So, first of all, first canon story arc, Darth Maul, son of Dathomir. This is following Maul from Season 5, where he was left off. This was originally going to be 4 episodes, The Enemy My Enemy, A Tale of Two Apprentices, Proxy War, and Showdown on Dathomir. This was actually published as a 4-issue comic book, one of the last that Dark Horse ever published, and it is a full direct adaptation of those scripts. It was reprinted by Marvel, so there is a version available out there, which hopefully isn't too hard to get, but at least it's been circulated enough that there is versions of it. So that was a 4-issue comic. This is set between 121 and 122 on the chronological order list. Now, these episodes are very important for the story of Maul. It's details that you don't necessarily need, but the origins of Maul, his parentage, major events to him, including how did he get from where he is in Season 5 to where he shows up in Season 7, am I going to go check out Son of Dathomir, either reading the comic or reading a nice summary? It's still canon, and they still reference it. All right, Crystal Crisis on Utapau is the next arc. This is a murder mystery on the Utapau planet, which Obi-Wan fought Grievous on in Revenge of the Sith. It sort of sets up where Utapau is at that point. This was 4 episodes planned as A Death on Utapau, In Search of the Crystal, Crystal Crisis, and The Big Bang. Now, these episodes were not finished, but they did reach the animatic point, so they were released as something called story reels on the Star Wars website, as well as the Clone Wars Lost Missions Blu-ray, and you can find them pretty easily online. These 4 episodes were going to be an arc, but the way they presented them is that they have unfinished animation, so it's just the animated models, basic backgrounds, but you've got your voices in there, even though their lips don't move, and you've got some sound effects and music, so they're kind of watchable, and they're pretty much, the next stage of that would have been sending them to animation. So we get that, and that's at least something to enjoy that story. That is also set between 121 and 122 in the chronological order. I recommend doing Son of Dathomir first, then Crystal Crisis Utapau next. There was another arc that was canceled called The Bad Batch, about 4 clones who essentially are genetic modifications / genetic defects. They each had like a special power, like one's super strong, one's got sniper abilities, one's a tracker, that kind of thing. It's really cool. Really do like the concept of The Bad Batch. Now, this was released as story reels April 14th, 2019, which was very interesting because in 2020, this actually got made in Season 7 of Clone Wars. It was one of the 3 arcs they picked to actually make that final season. And so the Bad Batch episodes did get made, so you don't need to watch the story reels, but it's kind of fun to go see the story reels compared to the final episodes. They're pretty close. But there was a reason they did the Bad Batch in the final season. Dark Disciple. Now, this is an interesting one. So, this follows Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Voss. They meet and end up going down a dark path together. This was originally planned as 8 episodes across Season 6 and 7. So, it's supposed to be like 2 arcs, one in Season 6, one in Season 7. And then this was actually released as a novel called Star Wars Dark Disciple on July 7th, 2015. This novel's still in print. I think the paperback edition is probably the easiest one to get. This is a darker, mature Star Wars story than you would expect. There is more violence, there's some sexiness, but this is very important for the character of Asajj Ventress, and also kind of the conclusion of all the stuff with Quinlan Vos that was sort of set up in the Clone Wars appearances he had. I have it set after 108 in the chronological order. Just kind of, after 108, Ventress doesn't show up again, so this is like where you need to read the rest of the novel. This is one of those things where it was like, oh, well, if you want to see where Ventress' story went, go read this novel. But she reappeared and stuff, and so now it's like, go read this novel to go watch this other stuff, or again, at least read a summary of the novel. And then we have one more. There's other arcs that just don't have enough material and aren't referenced to worry about. But the final arc that wasn't produced was the Bounty Hunter arc. This was supposed to be a 4-episode arc for Season 5. You notice Season 5 was a little bit shorter. It was part of that. It got pushed out when the cancellation was coming in because they really wanted to get that last arc of Season 5 out. This is following Boba Fett as he's working with the Bounty Hunter group, including Cad Bane, and sort of gets into like a mentor-type situation with Cad Bane before getting into a rivalry. It didn't get far enough along in production to be released as story reels, and we have just a singular clip, which was released April 13, 2017, and that clip is a duel between Boba Fett and Cad Bane, which sort of explains where Boba Fett got the dent in his helmet. And I wouldn't even be mentioning this because it's just one clip out of a story we don't have any other things on because there's no comic, there's no book, there's no video game. But they referenced it in the book of Boba Fett, so the story's still canon. Look, if you're not going to animate it, put it in something. Marvel puts out a lot of comics. Just make that happen. I need to see this arc. All right, the next thing for Star Wars, which is pretty much the last major thing before Disney took ownership, was the May 20th, 2011 opening of Star Tours, The Adventure Continues. This opened at Disney's Hollywood Studios first on May 20th, 2011, opened in Disneyland June 3rd, 2011, Tokyo May 7th, 2013, and March 26th, 2017 in Paris. This is now an updated version of Star Tours. Well, the original one was you go to one location, it's one story. This one had a rewritability factor because you get randomized planets. You get like 3 locations, you get different villains, and over time they have updated it. So there's hundreds of combinations, 100 possibilities, and if you're lucky, you could write it multiple times in a day and get different stories each time. That's pretty cool. Also, there was a period of time where it got stuck and they were only showing the new scenes for like a year, but the idea is that it's supposed to be randomized, and it does work, and they've expanded it from just the original intention, which was the 6 movies, to now it includes the TV shows, it includes the sequel trilogy, it includes all the stuff that they can. It's a fun ride, and it's a nice expansion. Yeah, Star Tours holds a big legacy, and the Starspeeder 1000 that's in that has appeared in canon material. Now, while there's no professional videos out there, there's plenty of fan videos that have great recordings of all the combination possibilities of all the scenes. So they are out there, and there's a pretty good archive of them. Now, there was one series that was produced that we will never see the light of day. That's Star Wars Detours. This was a parody comedy series by the Robot Chicken creators Seth Green and Matthew Steinrich. It was actually produced with 2 seasons of 39 episodes, and then once Lucasfilm was acquired by Disney, it was put on hold. Seemingly was supposed to release around 2013, but the concern was that the first thing that new audiences would see under Disney's ownership of Star Wars would be a parody, and they wanted to introduce it with something that was kind of more true and faithful to the Star Wars experience. That being said, over the years, they had some official clips released, and some stuff is leaked. So if you want to go look down the Detours rabbit hole, there is stuff out there for you. So in 2012, Disney purchased Star Wars and Lucasfilm, and they got to work. And the first thing released in 2014, the first ever Disney Star Wars release, Star Wars Phineas and Ferb. Thought I was going to say Rebels, but no, this predates Rebels by like 2 weeks. Star Wars Phineas and Ferb, or Phineas and Ferb Star Wars, aired July 26, 2014. This is an official crossover parody of Star Wars with the Phineas and Ferb series that was very popular on the Disney Channel, which has even circled back around and come back. This is the first official release of Disney's ownership of Lucasfilm. Very interesting. Now, I haven't been including Star Wars parodies, but I included Detours, I included this because they actually have the Star Wars name on them. Now, Phineas and Ferb Star Wars is a very loving parody, but it is definitely done from the perspective of the audience knows the Phineas and Ferb characters. Let's introduce them to Star Wars. Not a bad marketing idea, all things considered. And the plot itself is essentially A New Hope is happening, and then the Phineas and Ferb characters are over here doing stuff. And they cross paths with the characters from the movie. It's a very, very clever special. But again, if you haven't seen Phineas and Ferb, it's going to not really work if you're only a Star Wars person. That being said, Phineas and Ferb is a great show. You should check it out anyways. But that is, of course, non-canon, but it is available on Disney+. Now let's get into the first major production of Star Wars under Disney's ownership, the August 11, 2014 premiere of Star Wars Rebels. This series takes place between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, and it follows the crew of the Ghost as they become part of the rebellion and fight the Empire on a local level, eventually building up to a larger scale. This, unlike Clone Wars, Clone Wars was a series that jumped around between characters, right? It's like, we're doing this over here, we're going to show this, we're going to show all the aspects of the war. Rebels was a Star Wars show focused on its main cast. Ezra, Kanan, Sabine, Hera, Zeb, and Chopper are the main characters, and they stay focused. It's a very interesting, different approach than we had seen with the previous Star Wars series. This is a really cool, great show. Also, carrying forward a lot of production staff from the Clone Wars, I would highly recommend you seeing the Clone Wars before watching this, because they bring back characters from the Clone Wars, and it's good to have familiarity with it. Also, if you were a fan at the time, you kept seeing Clone Wars characters reference things that happened in Season 7 that they never showed you before. I can't believe how many years we went going, what happened at the Siege of Mandalore, before we finally saw it in Clone Wars Season 7. So this series is very much tied to Star Wars mythology. It's also kind of a good entry point, because this was the first thing Disney was putting out. If you wanted to jump in cold, you may not know everything going on, but you're going to get a pretty great TV show. Rebels did run for 4 seasons and 75 episodes. There was 4 shorts that predate the series that kind of introduce you to each character one at a time. Then Season 1 lasted 15 episodes starting in 2014. Season 2, 22 episodes starting in 2015. Season 3 was 22 episodes starting in 2016. And Season 4 was 16 episodes in 2017. And unlike Clone Wars, this wasn't canceled and was given a proper finale in its initial run, which is awesome. The entire thing is available on Disney+, and no worries about episode orders here. Then, of course, the biggest splash that Disney made with their ownership of Star Wars was the December 18th, 2015 release of Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. This is, of course, set 30 years after Return of the Jedi and sees a new group of enemies appear, known as the First Order, trying to reinstate the Empire. New heroes team up with old heroes to work together to try to stop them. It starts the sequel trilogy, and if you were following my notes, you already saw it. So this is going to be kind of carving out a new section of the Star Wars timeline to explore as we go further. December 16, 2016 saw the release of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, the first ever spin-off theatrical film for Star Wars. This is, I didn't put this in required viewing because it is a spin-off film, but it is set in the weeks leading up to Episode 4, A New Hope. The final scene of this is the first scene of A New Hope. They thread together really neatly. In a way that every time I've gone to watch Rogue One lately, I just start watching A New Hope right after. It's a fun time. But the story here is following the rebels that found the Death Star plans, because that's a plot point in the original trilogy. It's where everything starts, is that Leia is giving the Death Star plans to R2. Those Death Star plans, how did she get them? Where did they come from? That is the story of Rogue One and the rebels that did the mission itself to get those plans. All right, so then we get to something that a lot of people overlook when it comes to Star Wars that I really want to give some flowers to, which is Forces of Destiny. Now, Forces of Destiny is a web series of 3-minute episodes focused on the female characters of the franchise. There was 32 of them across 2 seasons, 16 each season, aired between 2017 and 2018. These take place throughout the timeline, and they're all canon. And I got to give a credit to the production team on Forces of Destiny and the writers, because as I was researching where to put these in my chronological watch order, they really did their homework, and they really made something great out of this. Some of these shorts are going to be more consequential than others. Some will explain plot points. Like there's a Leia one about how she got the bounty hunter armor she wore in Return of the Jedi. Or there's another one with like Ahsoka training Ezra in Rebels time frame. There's a lot of really cool stuff built within this series, and a lot of people overlook it because it's like, oh, it's a little cartoon to promote the doll line. But really, the people that worked on this did their homework. I was able to slot together every single chapter of this into the Star Wars timeline. Bravo. I can't even do it that cleanly with some of the more recent stuff in Star Wars, so gotta give it its credit. Now, if you're kind of wondering which characters have which episodes, this is assuming you're going to look at the list of episodes as all 32, as 1 to 32. I'm going to break it down for each female character lead for the episodes. Some of them are shared. All right, so Rey is the lead in episodes 1, 2, 10, 15, 21, 24, 29. Ahsoka in 4, 11, 12, 18, 31. Leia in 3, 5, 14, 22, and 30. Padme in 6, 12, 18, and 26. Jyn Erso in 7, 13, 20. Sabine in 8, 9, 13, 16, 17, 27. Ketsu in 9 and 16. Hera in 14, 17, and 25. Rose in 19, Luke in 23 and 30, Chewbacca in 28, and Kira in 32. A couple of those names, Rose and Kira, we haven't gone through chronologically, but if you watch the 9 movies, Rose is from Last Jedi. Kira comes up in Solo, a Star Wars story, but that story takes place prior to it. So if you're watching chronologically and you've already seen all the movies, you can just watch this whole thing. If you're watching release order, I should say, and you've already seen the movies, you can just watch this thing in one go, which is nice. Okay, November 17, 2017, EA released their second Star Wars Battlefront game, Battlefront II, and this had a story mode. The story takes place in the aftermath of Return of the Jedi. It actually begins with the Death Star 2 being destroyed and follows into stories that we have heard about, like the Battle of Jakku. It has some stories with Han, Luke, and Leia, as well as its core story following a squadron of TIE fighter pilots known as Inferno Squadron and going through what they're going to do now that the Empire has fallen. There also was a free DLC known as Resurrection that showed those characters during the sequel trilogy time frame, following through on their storyline. This game was released on Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. There was a ton of multiplayer side to it, but the single-player story campaign is a new canon story that does get referenced and does show some things we don't see otherwise. Released December 15, 2017 was Star Wars The Last Jedi, which is also known as Episode 8. This was the next chapter in the sequel trilogy. It is, of course, a main canon chapter, and if you followed my directions, you've already seen it. The next Star Wars project was May 25th, 2018, with Solo, a Star Wars story, a spin-off focused on Han Solo in his younger days, meeting Chewbacca, as well as encountering the Crimson Dawn crime syndicate, as well as encountering his old girlfriend. This movie is interesting because the first spin-off Star Wars movie that's not about a Star War, right? Rogue One's got a lot of war conflict stuff in it, Rebels versus Empire. This is about smugglers and bounty hunters and people just trying to make their way through the galaxy. It's rogues and scoundrels and stuff. It's fun. It's different. It's a different flavor of Star Wars, and it focuses on a young Han Solo, which is kind of, of course, the big hook. But a bunch of stuff from this would kind of expand out into other Star Wars media, so I think it's definitely worth checking out. All right, on October 7, 2018, the sequel trilogy got its own animated series tie-in with Star Wars Resistance. This series is set before, during, and after Episode 7, The Force Awakens. The biggest timeline connection we see is that towards the finale of Star Wars Resistance, the Starkiller-based destruction of those 5 planets in the New Republic is referenced. So it takes place before Force Awakens and then after Force Awakens. So that's kind of like its time frame. Characters from The Force Awakens show up, like Poe Dameron and Captain Phasma, and it's kind of just an extension of the First Order Resistance conflict. The series lasted for 2 seasons, 40 episodes. Season 1 was 21 episodes in 2018. There was 12 shorts released in 2018 as well between seasons, and then in 2019 we got a 19-episode second season. The entire series is available on Disney+. No prior viewing required for this outside of The Force Awakens. Not even the rest of the sequel trilogy, just Force Awakens. So kind of a neat little side thing if you want more sequel trilogy goodness. Premiering November 30th, 2018 was Star Wars Galaxy of Adventures. This was an animated series done on YouTube. They're 2 to 3 minute shorts, or 1 to 3 minute shorts actually. Some of them are very short. But it's a hyper-stylized retelling of iconic moments throughout the Star Wars story. The cool part is that sometimes they'd be montages to show the evolutions of characters, sometimes they'd just be certain moments. Sometimes they toss in some scenes from like deleted scenes or comic books to just kind of spice it up. If you love Star Wars and you want to see Star Wars through a different lens of animation, definitely check out Galaxy of Adventures. This ran for 54 shorts across 2 seasons, 36 in 2018 and an additional 18 in 2020. They are on the Star Wars Kids YouTube. Now, after years of anticipation and construction, May 31st, 2019 saw the opening of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, a full-featured Star Wars-themed land at Disneyland, with the August 29, 2019 opening of the Disney Hollywood Studios version. This is set on a new location in Star Wars, the Black Spire Outpost on the planet Batuu. Now, this is a canon location, and they claim to say that this is a canon day in Star Wars that exists in the timeline, and it's just you're in a constant loop and you just walk in and out of it. I can't put a theme park land on a canon timeline. I don't have it in me. But that is the official word, is that it was once canon, because it was supposed to be specifically set between Episode 8, Last Jedi, and Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker. But as time has gone on, they've started to put in characters like the Mandalorian and Luke Skywalker, so the timeline's kind of broken up now. And that's honestly fine. It's a theme park land. Theme park lands don't need to be canon. That being said, the Star Wars land used to sell very cool, like, in-universe Star Wars toys, and now they sell Funko Pops. So that part's a little disappointing. Now, there was 2 attractions at Galaxy's Edge, and these 2 attractions do basically are canon stories. So the first one we have is Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. The pirate Hondo Ohnaka from the Clone Wars and Rebels is hiring the Falcon out to smugglers to fly to collect coaxium. They're trying to basically raise money for the Resistance, and he's making profits on the side. It's kind of a mutually beneficial deal. So the fun part about the ride, of course, is that you're flying the Millennium Falcon, you're in the cockpit, everybody gets divided up between jobs. It's a cool experience. That being said, it has only had the one mission the whole time, even though they promised multiple missions. But starting May 22nd, 2026, they'll be adding a Mandalorian and Grogu themed mission that is a story that supposedly takes place to the side of the Mandalorian and Grogu movie. So the original ride story takes place between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. The Mandalorian story takes place next to The Mandalorian. The other major attraction is Rise of the Resistance, a trackless dark ride where you are put in the position of being a Resistance recruit who is then captured by the First Order and interrogated, and the Resistance is going to help break you out, and it gets into a big old battle scene. The story itself is supposed to be canon and kind of the main crux of the canonicity of the Resistance being on Batuu and Galaxy's Edge in general. There are a couple issues with this. First of all, Kylo Ren is in his Force Awakens look as opposed to his Rise of Skywalker look, and he's got the helmet and the long robes from Force Awakens, because when they were building this ride, they only had Force Awakens to work off of. So they didn't know which way the movies were going, so it's a bit of a continuity hiccup. Also, the Resistance forces are not significantly depleted like they are at the end of Last Jedi, so it also seems a little bit weird. They have enough forces for a giant space battle, when it didn't seem like they had that anymore. Outside of those, the overall thing with Galaxy's Edge, location's canon, the ride stories are canon, just not exactly how they're presented, because they're, live theme park experiences with live actors, which is fun. But it also doesn't mean that, I guess in some ways you can be like, well, my time going on the ride was canon. It's up to you how you want to do it. There are official pro shot videos of the theme park land and the rides themselves on Disney Plus, but I'm going to be totally honest, I think that the fan video that has been done on YouTube by theme park fans are honestly done much better than the pro shots. The pro shots have the benefit of no other people around, but they put the camera on the ride and then never turn the camera, because when you're on a dark ride, you turn your head a lot. And these pro shots are just, we mounted the camera on the front of the vehicle, so you miss a ton of stuff. I do recommend the fan videos over those, but at least you have the ability to watch it officially if that is the route you'd like to go. Premiering November 12th, 2019, alongside the Disney Plus platform that Disney has anchored their entire business to, is The Mandalorian, the first ever live-action Star Wars TV series. George Lucas kept trying to do one for years, but every network kept telling him, it's too expensive, you're not going to make your money back. And George was like, no, it'll be fine. And I don't know if anyone pointed out to him that he did the same thing with Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, where that was a show that was way too expensive and the ratings would never make up for the cost, but hey, that show's great. So is The Mandalorian. Now, The Mandalorian itself is focused on a Mandalorian bounty hunter, and he encounters a new bounty, which he makes a controversial decision of that changes the trajectory of his life forever. And this, of course, is become the backbone of the current Disney Plus Star Wars shows. It's actually kind of carved out its own point in the timeline, which is that it's set 5 years after Return of the Jedi. Season 1 of The Mandalorian, which aired in 2019 for 8 episodes, is pretty standalone, and in Season 2, which aired in 2020 for 8 episodes, started to bring in other characters from the Star Wars canon, including live-action debuts of Clone Wars characters like Ahsoka and Bo-Katan Kryze. So if you haven't seen the Clone Wars, you don't have to, but it's kind of nice. Then also, following the appearance of Boba Fett in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, there is a post-credit scene at the end of Season 2 of Mandalorian that announced that December 29, 2021 would see the premiere of the Book of Boba Fett. Now, the Book of Boba Fett is a spin-off series focused on Boba Fett trying to establish himself as the king of the crime world of Tatooine. Now, that being said, this series is incredibly strangely put together. So on the surface, you're like, okay, show about Boba Fett becomes Tatooine. I'm following Mandalorian. I don't need to watch this. They said, no, you got to watch it. So here's the thing. Episodes 1 to 4, chapters 1 to 4, the Book of Boba Fett, are flashbacks connecting Boba Fett's story from Return of the Jedi to where we saw him in The Mandalorian. Then it's also, at the same time, doing a present-day storyline where Boba Fett is coming in conflict with the Pike Syndicate on Tatooine. So it's got kind of a back-and-forth storyline going on. Then in Episode 5, the Mandalorian shows up and takes up the entire episode. It's essentially Mandalorian Season 2.5, Episode 1. And then Episodes 6 and 7 will be continuing the Boba Fett versus Pike storyline, but also focusing on the Mandalorian storyline, including a major, significant development that I personally would not have put in a spin-off show, but they did it, so I'm warning you, if you like The Mandalorian, you have to at least have seen 5 through 7 of Boba Fett. It's very confusing, but it's kind of honestly just worth it to watch this as a Season 2.5 of Mandalorian, more so than a standalone Boba Fett series. Now, that being said, if you are a big Boba Fett fan who has wanted a Boba Fett TV show and you're like, yeah, I want to just get to the chase. I want to just do the Boba Fett stuff. I don't want to know all this other stuff going on. Well, here's your guide for prior viewing. Mandalorian episodes 5, 9, 14, 15, and 16. Also, the Clone Wars. Everything Boba Fett did in Clone Wars, as well as the character of Cad Bane. And also, Clone Wars Legacy's Bounty Hunter arc. Go read up on that, because they reference it, even though there's no way to actually experience that story in full. Come on, Filoni. You're in charge of the whole thing now. Give me the Bounty Hunter arc. Come on. All right, anyways. After Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian Season 3 finally premiered March 1st, 2023, lasting 8 episodes. And if you did not watch Book of Boba Fett, you need to watch episodes 5 to 7 of Book of Boba Fett before Season 3 of Mando. So if you're looking to try to figure out what do I need to watch for The Mandalorian, Season 1, Season 2, the 5 through 7 of Boba Fett, and then Season 3. There you go. Made it simple. Now, the November to December period of 2019 was busy for Star Wars. Mando was the first thing. The second thing was the launch of a new video game, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, the first standalone single-player game that we had seen in the current era at that point. This is a brand new story with brand new characters set between Revenge of the Sith, and it focuses on Jedi in hiding Cal Kestis as he decides to go after the Empire directly and fight them on their territory, and goes through learning and developing new skills. And it was released on Windows, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. And what's also awesome about the game is that it would get a sequel later, so it's got even more reason to be here. Released December 20th, 2019 was Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, Episode 9, the conclusion to the Skywalker saga and the sequel trilogy as a whole. The other cool part about this movie, if you watched it, like I said you should, and you didn't catch it, a bunch of Clone Wars voice actors are in it, playing the Jedi they played in Clone Wars. That was like one of my favorite parts of the movie. All right, moving into the cursed decade of the 2020s, June 10th, 2020 saw the release of Star Wars Jedi Temple Challenge. This is the weirdest thing I had to put on here. So, this is a reality competition show where kids participate in competitions to win Jedi trials and eventually win prizes. Why is it on the Star Wars viewing guide, you say? Well, because the character hosting it is Jedi Master Kelleran Beck, played by Jar Jar Binks actor Ahmad Best. And Kelleran Beck is canon. He shows up in The Mandalorian. And then I had to go and watch this show. And I didn't watch all of it, but I watched like the first 5 minutes and found that they never used any out-of-universe terms. It was all in-universe terminology. And now I'm imagining a situation where the TV networks in Star Wars like went to the Jedi and like, look, let's just improve your rep. You know, people keep assuming that you just like, you know, take children from their families to raise them as Jedi. What if we frame it as a competition show? So I've done way too much thinking about this, but technically, debatable canon. It doesn't ever use Earth terms for stuff. it only uses in-universe Star Wars terms. So is it an in-universe TV show and Keller and Beck just got stuck with the bum duty of doing, advertisement? I don't know. But he's canon. So the rest of the show is? Probably not. But here it is. It lasted 10 episodes and was on the Star Wars Kids YouTube channel. Released October 2nd, 2020 was Star Wars Squadrons, a video game focused on combat and flying and ship stuff. It has a story mode that's set 4 years after Return of the Jedi, and it is focused on the New Republic's Vanguard Squadron and the Galactic Empire's Titan Squadron, and they're in a conflict of balance of power. Pretty fun to have a new story placed there. It was released on Windows, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S. It also has a prequel that takes place shortly after the destruction of Alderaan. So that's kind of a neat little thing we don't usually see a whole lot on. Premiering May 4th, 2021, Star Wars The Bad Batch. This is why the Bad Batch episodes were chose to be adapted into Season 7 of Clone Wars, because they decided, let's do an entire show. So set in the direct aftermath of Order 66, during Revenge of the Sith, the Bad Batch are on the run from the Empire, and they're looking for a peaceful life away from the chaos of the combat life they've been a part of, especially when they find a young clone known as Omega, and they become a nice found family, and they go through just perfect things in life, and they never face hardship that makes me sad to think about. Anyways, this lasted for 3 seasons and 47 episodes. Season 1 was 16 episodes in 2021, Season 2 of 16 episodes in 2023, and Season 3 of 15 episodes in 2024. Now, if you're wanting to watch this series, what is prior viewing? At least the Season 7 episodes with the Bad Batch. But honestly, you should probably watch all of Clone Wars because they bring in a lot of characters from the Clone Wars, especially on the clone side of things. Because basically, while the Bad Batch is, of course, about clones and their found family, it is about what happened to the clones after the Clone Wars, which I think is very interesting to take a look at. But if you don't have context of the clones from the Clone Wars, you're going to be missing a lot. It is a Clone Wars spinoff, and I think you should watch Clone Wars first before watching Bad Batch. Premiering September 22nd, 2021 was a very interesting Star Wars project known as Star Wars Visions. The idea behind this is to do anthology shorts from different animation studios. So each short in Visions is done by a different animation studio through a different lens of what Star Wars can be. So basically, Volume 1 premiered in 2021 with 9 shorts. These are all anime studios from Japan, and each of them has a different take on what Star Wars should be. Volume 2, which was 9 shorts in 2023, was studios that weren't from Japan or North America. And so you got, studios from Europe. There's a really cool French studio that was used. Very huge variety, even more so variety than the first volume. And then Volume 3 was 9 shorts in 2025, and I believe it was the same Japanese studios from Volume 1 that came back, and so some of them were sequels. So for example, Volume 3 Short 1 is a sequel to Volume 1 Short 1, Volume 3 Short 3 is a sequel to Volume 1 Short 5, and Volume 3 Short 6 is a sequel to Volume 1 Short 4. Now naturally, all these stories are non-canon. They're just fun explorations of Star Wars as an animated medium. Opening March 1st, 2022 was Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser, a combined hotel and live-action roleplay experience, which acted as an extension to Galaxy's Edge and putting a bunch of features they promised for Galaxy's Edge in that instead behind a high paywall. And it is a story of the Resistance on Batuu, as well as fighting the First Order and eventually escaping. So, this was a hotel where you had to stay for 2 nights, and it was pretty participatory if you wanted to see the story experiences. There was multiple storylines, multiple story paths, and a whole bunch of activities. Everyone I ever heard from that went to this thing said it was the most exhausting experience because you're not really on vacation, you are in a live-action roleplay experience 24/7. Now, fun part about this opened March 1st, 2022. It closed September 30th, 2023. Turns out, charging $5,000 for 2 people for a 2-night stay at a hotel where you have to be an active participant basically most hours of the day and not being able to do everything in one visit wasn't a sustainable business model. Who would have guessed? Pretty much everyone that saw the prices. I never went, and I never wanted to go. I also never had $5,000 to go. And most people didn't. And in people that did, were only ever going to go once. There's only a few people that went it multiple times. That being said, the ship itself, the Galactic Starcruiser, the Halcyon, is canon. The events are said to be canon. The live-action roleplay I would not consider canon because everybody's going to have a different experience. Some people couldn't even stay on one storyline path the entire stay because logistics. There are fan videos of experiences on YouTube. I think there's one that's like 4 hours long that shows every storyline, and there's a couple video essays that are really good about the entire failure of the concept and execution, and how it was way too ambitious for whatever they were trying to do. All right, on May 27, 2022, fans got one of the things they've been looking for: Obi-Wan Kenobi, the return of Ewan McGregor to the role, and Hayden Christensen to the role of Darth Vader. This is set 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, and Obi-Wan is forced to come out of hiding in order to go on a mission to save Leia Organa, who has been kidnapped. Now, this series itself is a six-episode miniseries airing in 2022. The other interesting part is it does bring in characters seen in some of the animated shows like Star Wars Rebels. The Inquisitors, who are Jedi hunters, if you've seen Rebels, they appear in live action for the first time in this series. But I'm going to be canon police for a minute. The Grand Inquisitor is portrayed completely differently, visually, personality, and overall storyline-wise. And the fifth brother is played by a different ethnicity of an actor and has a completely different personality as well. So it is still canon, and it's one of the first major hiccups. Star Wars canon's been pretty tight up to this point, but they played loose and free with the Inquisitors on this show, which is a bummer. I just want to let everybody know, you don't have to watch Rebels, because I don't think the people involved with doing the Inquisitors in the show did either. So, yeah. Premiering September 21st, 2022, the highly regarded Andor. Now, Andor, when it was announced, was a very interesting project because people were kind of confused. Cassian Andor from Rogue One's getting an entire show to himself? Well, that's because this show is about a lot more than just Cassian Andor. So the series itself begins 5 years prior to the events of Rogue One and leads directly up into them, kind of like how Rogue One leads into A New Hope. It follows Cassian Andor in his early life to becoming a key agent in the Rebellion. It also follows a storyline with the Empire and how they became aware of the Rebellion and how they were kind of imparting themselves on the average person in the galaxy and how their influence began to strengthen but also weaken. And it also did a side with how the Senate and how the democracy side of the galaxy started to realize that they became ineffectual in the face of fascism. And that just because the Senate would still meet didn't mean they had any actual power, and that rebellion was going to be the thing that was going to actually counteract the Empire. These three corners of the galactic story that is played out through Andor is done brilliantly and provides more insight into things than ever seen before. Also, out of all the live-action Star Wars shows and animated shows, this is the most adult and most mature. It is done more like a prestige drama than a traditional Star Wars TV show. So, this lasted for 2 seasons of 24 episodes. Season 1 was 12 episodes released in 2022. This covers the first year. This is covering 5 years before the Battle of Yavin, the Battle of Yavin being in A New Hope. That's Star Wars' calendar system. I'm not a fan of it, but it is helpful. Then Season 2 was also 12 episodes in 2025 that covered the next 4 years. So episodes 1 to 3 covered the second year, or 4 years before Rogue One. Year 3 was episodes 4 to 6, year 4 was 7 to 9, and year 5 was 10 to 12, and that goes right up to Rogue One. So, prior viewing, not required for anything. If you saw Rogue One, it's helpful, but you also could just watch Rogue One as a finale and just not know what happens in that movie. The show will build into it. Honestly makes Rogue One even a better movie. There also is a direct tie-in to Star Wars Rebels. It is one specific episode. We will talk about that in the chronological order at the end of the video. October 22nd, 2022 saw the debut of a new concept for Star Wars animation, Star Wars Tales of the Jedi. This is an anthology concept where basically we have 2 stories of 2 Jedi, Ahsoka Tano and Dooku. So there's going to be 2 stories within 6 mini episodes. These episodes are between 12 and 15 minutes long. So Ahsoka's story, which was episodes 1, 5, and 6, is 3 different points in time. The first one is her time before she was a Jedi. The second one shows her evolution of training and practice over the years and what Anakin taught her and how it really saved her in the end. And then the third one is her time after Order 66, before her appearance in Rebels. So you have those 3 points in time. Dooku's story, which was episodes 2 to 4 of Tales of the Jedi, is showing all the events leading to his betrayal of the Jedi and becoming Darth Tyrannus. And that is something that a lot of fans have been wanting for a long time, and the series delivers on that. So prior viewing for these would be the Clone Wars. If you want to watch Dooku's story, you can watch that without watching anything besides the movies. But of course, Ahsoka's story makes sense if you've seen the Clone Wars, as this is slotting in moments we never saw. Premiering April 26, 2023 was Star Wars Young Jedi Adventures. This is a preschool series that is like the most kid-friendly Star Wars thing ever, and if I was 3, it'd be my favorite show in the world. It is set during the High Republic era, which is hundreds of years before The Phantom Menace, and it's about a group of younglings who are learning to use the Force and get life lessons. It's cute and fun. It's cute and fun as a Star Wars show. It also slightly concerns me because they're younglings and they have full-fledged lightsabers, and I'm always worried they're going to cut something they shouldn't. So, 3 seasons, 55 episodes. These were 11-minute episode segments. So, season 1 had 6 shorts prior to its first season airing, and then the 25 episodes of the season. Between seasons, there was Fun with Nubs, which was 20 shorts. Season 2 had 23 episodes. Season 2 had 6 episode shorts after that, and then Season 3 was 7 episodes to wrap up the series. There is no prior viewing for this. You don't even have to have seen the movies. It's made for young kids to get into Star Wars, and it looks like it's a great time. I watched some of it, and if I had kids, they would definitely be watching it. It's great. It's they carry around lightsabers, but not every conflict's solved with violence, which I think is nice. April 28, 2023 saw the release of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which is set 5 years after Fallen Order, and it's following Cal Kestis' story, and so he fights the Empire, starts to reconnect with the Jedi Order and its original origins as well. If you had not played Fallen Order, you definitely should. Fallen Order and Survivor work well together. This was released on Windows, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. Premiering August 22nd, 2023 was Ahsoka. This is set 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and it follows Ahsoka Tano as she reunites with some old friends from Star Wars Rebels. Yes, as we've all been joking, and it just feels like it from episode 1, Ahsoka Season 1 is not its own show. It is Rebels Season 5. So Ahsoka did appear in The Mandalorian. She was looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn, and this led into her own series where the main plot is we got to find Thrawn, what's up with these Imperial remnants, and she reconnects with Sabine and Hera and other characters. So because of this, the prior viewing required, you need to have watched Rebels. Ahsoka does not work as a show without watching Rebels. Trust me on this. Also, Rebels is great, so you'll be fine. But basically, it's an ongoing series. So season 1 was 8 episodes in 2023. Season 2 will probably be 8 episodes releasing in 2027. It just recently got delayed. Prior viewing that is required for this would be the Clone Wars for Ahsoka's story. Rebels is... you can't watch this without Rebels. You just have to watch Rebels to watch Ahsoka. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And then also you should check out Mandalorian episode 13, where Ahsoka did appear for context on her as well as one of the villains in the series. But yes, you should watch Rebels before watching Ahsoka. It's one I have to really hammer that one home because my dad hadn't seen Rebels, and then Ahsoka was coming around, and I was like, this is basically Rebels Season 5, so I was like, all right, Dad, we're watching Rebels. We watched Rebels, he loved it. We watched Ahsoka's first episode, and he was like, thank you for showing me Rebels, because if I hadn't seen that, I would have no idea what's going on. So there's your proof positive, watch Rebels. All right, May 4th, 2024 saw the release of Star Wars Tales of the Empire, another Tales series. 2 agents of the Empire, Morgan Elsbeth and Barriss Offee, have completely different experiences. So this is 6 episodes once again, split into 2 stories. Morgan Elsbeth's story is showing how she joined the Empire, how she became connected to Grand Admiral Thrawn, and how she got established when we first saw her in The Mandalorian. Barriss Offee's story follows her after Clone Wars and after Order 66 as she becomes involved with the Inquisitor program. Very fun story for that. Prior viewing requirements. If you want to watch this, Clone Wars is required for Barriss Offee, specifically the Season 5 episodes that featured her. And then for Morgan Elsbeth, there is the Clone Wars episode Massacre that's required, as well as Mandalorian episode 13 and Ahsoka Season 1. All right, premiering June 4th, 2024 was The Acolyte, which is set at the tail end of the High Republic era, which is still 100 years prior to The Phantom Menace. A Jedi Master is murdered and an investigation is launched into discovering who did the crime, but it also is really about the dark side of the Force and its influences. This was a live-action series running for 8 episodes in 2024. Sadly, it was canceled after its first season, so it's not a fully resolved plot. But it did take place at a completely unique new place and time that we had not seen in Star Wars in live action, and that was pretty cool to see. Released August 30th, 2024 was Star Wars Outlaws, a new video game that was set after Empire Strikes Back. It's actually after the Battle of Hoth, so it's kind of during Empire Strikes Back, but it follows an outlaw known as Kay Vess, and she's traveling the underworld of the galaxy. The main story itself was part of the game, but there was DLC story missions, Jabba's Gambit, Wildcard, and A Pirate's Fortune. If you're wanting to experience this game and get the full experience out of it, it's not required for any prior viewing, but it does reference characters and stories from Clone Wars, Rebels, Solo Star Wars story, as well as the Crimson Dawn trilogy from the Marvel comics. That's a whole discussion another day, but they actually reference things from those comics in this. Also, this was released on Windows, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and Nintendo Switch 2. Released December 2nd, 2024, was Star Wars Skeleton Crew. This is set 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and it is actually after The Mandalorian Season 3. 4 kids get lost from home, and they encounter pirates who are looking for treasure that's on their home world. So it's a lot of, these kids got to get home, but these pirates are trying to get there too, and a lot of mysterious storylines and adventures. This lasted 8 episodes, but was not renewed for a Season 2, but hasn't officially been canceled either. There's really no prior viewing required besides the movies. There's one character from The Mandalorian that shows up in it, but you don't need to have seen The Mandalorian to get that. The following year, May 4, 2025, we got Star Wars Tales of the Underworld, focusing on 2 different outlaws, Asajj Ventress and Cad Bane. So, Asajj Ventress' story was the first 3 episodes, and it's going over what happened to her between Dark Disciple and when she appeared in The Bad Batch. Cad Bane's story, which is episodes 4 through 6, is his backstory on how he became a bounty hunter. Most of the Tales stuff is like, if you liked this, watch this, but if you wanted to watch it, Clone Wars is essential for Cad Bane and Asajj's stories. The Dark Disciple novel, either read it or get the audiobook or read a summary for Asajj Ventress, and also The Bad Batch for connections there. Premiering April 6, 2026, was Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord, focusing on Darth Maul. I was very excited about this. So Maul Shadow Lord is set sometime after the end of the Clone Wars and after Revenge of the Sith. Maul is trying to reestablish his criminal empire in hiding and not attract attention from the Empire, but he also wants revenge on Emperor Palpatine for doing everything he did to him. So it's got, eventually he's going to run into the Empire, as you can imagine. The series is ongoing. Season 1 just finished airing not too long ago. That was 10 episodes in 2026, and we're supposed to be getting a second season, which will probably also 10 episodes in the future. They said coming soon, which is pretty exciting. The series itself is focusing on crime lords, underworld stuff, and then also the dichotomy of where do the Jedi and the Sith find themselves after the Empire is taken over? What happens to Jedi after the Order has fallen? And, it's got a lot of great stuff to it. And, dare I say, the most gorgeous animation Star Wars has ever seen. And I'm not just saying that as a Maul fan. Plenty of people agree with me. They redid the animation style, and it's beautiful. All right. So if you're wanting to watch Maul Shadow Lord, because I've had this question come up a lot in live streams and other video comments. If you want to watch Maul Shadow Lord, and you don't want to watch all the other prior stuff, you just want to get to the Darth Maul story, obviously Phantom Menace, that's where he first appeared. But here we go. Clone Wars, Season 4, Episodes 21 and 22. Season 5, Episodes 1, 14, 15, and 16. The Son of Dathomir comic, at least read a summary about it. And then Clone Wars Season 7, Episodes 9 through 12. If you do all that, you're set up for Maul Shadow Lord pretty nicely. Releasing May 22nd, 2026, the first Star Wars movie in theaters in 7 years is The Mandalorian and Grogu. This is set after the Mandalorian series and focuses on Mando and Grogu tracking down Imperial remnants, but then encountering the Hutts along the way. So this is the first theatrical sequel to a series since the Clone Wars movie was a pilot to the series. This is actually going to be really interesting to see if the audience for the TV shows is big enough to carry over to the theatrical movies and vice versa. So if you're wanting to watch this, because it's coming up in theaters, people are excited about it, here is your required viewing. Obviously, Mandalorian Season 1, Season 2, Book of Boba Fett Episodes 5 through 7, and Season 3 of The Mandalorian. Now, you could watch all of Book of Boba Fett because there are 2 Hutts that debuted in Book of Boba Fett that appear in this movie, so maybe worth watching all those shows. That's not too much to catch up on. Also optional viewing the Clone Wars movie and Rebels because Rhoda the Hutt, who debuted in the Clone Wars movie, and Zeb Orrelios, who was from Rebels, are both in the film. Don't know how much explanation they're going to get. Probably, enough to get you by. I wouldn't have to worry about cramming in Clone Wars and Rebels before it, but just want to be aware of that. That movie's coming to theaters and eventually will be on Disney Plus and home video outlets, but it's going to be interesting to see how we take a live-action Star Wars show and bring it to the movie space. Now, we have 2 Star Wars projects that are upcoming that we know for sure are in production or have already been through production. First up, coming this year in 2026, Star Wars Visions presents The Ninth Jedi. This is a sequel TV series to the Ninth Jedi Vision sorts. So those were Star Wars Visions Volume 1 Short 5 and Volume 3 Short 3. This series will be continuing from those, focusing on the Ninth Jedi. It's non-canon, of course, but it's nice to see Visions kind of expand out into a long-form format. And then currently scheduled to release May 28, 2027 will be Star Wars Starfighter, a new film that will be set 5 years after The Rise of Skywalker. It's said to be standalone and is starring Ryan Gosling. So we'll see how that turns out. We have basically no other confirmed details about it at this time. So that is the release order. We still got the chronological canon order, and I'm going to kind of blow through that thing because we've already explained what all this stuff is and kind of how it all fits together. Now let's just give you a nice little recap if you're wanting to watch it chronologically. All right, students of chronology, get out the pens and papers. Here we go. I'm going to break this down into following categories: the High Republic, the Age of Republic, Prequel Trilogy era, Age of Rebellion, Original Trilogy era, Age of New Republic, Mando series era, and Age of Resistance sequel trilogy era. All right, let's get to it. So High Republic, chronologically, Young Jedi Adventures, and the Acolyte. It's a fun dichotomy between projects there. All right, Age of Republic. So Tales of the Jedi, the Dooku episodes, Tales of the Underworld, the Cad Bane episodes, Tales of the Jedi, Ahsoka episode Life and Death, then Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, followed by Forces of Destiny, Padme, Monster Misunderstanding. Then we have Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Clone Wars, the 2D series. Just watch the entire thing just so you have those baseline stories in place before going into chronological Clone Wars, which is stories 1 to 2 on the chronological list, then the movie, stories 3 to 52 from the chronological list, then the following Forces of Destiny shorts: Teach You I Will starring Ahsoka, Unexpected Company, and The Imposter Inside, and The Starfighter Stunt starring Ahsoka and Padme. Then the Padawan Path focusing on Ahsoka. Then we're going to jump back into Clone Wars with chronological stories 53 to 84. We're going to put in Tales of the Empire from Morgan Elsbeth, The Path of Fear. Continuing Clone Wars, chronological stories 85 to 108. Then we're going to put in the Dark Disciple novel. Then we're going to do Clone Wars stories 109 to 121, put in the Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir comic, and the Crystal Crisis on Utapau story reels. Then we have Clone Wars 122 to 129, and then Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, to then put in Clone Wars 130 to 133, because those take place at the same time, but you want to get Revenge of the Sith in first. That makes the most sense, like watching order-wise. Then you want to do Tales of the Jedi, Ahsoka, Practice Makes Perfect, because that is moments across the whole Clone Wars experience. Then Tales of the Empire, Barriss, Devoted, and Realization. Moving into the Age of Rebellion, because now the Galactic Empire is established, we're going to start off with the Bad Batch, because it starts at the end of Order 66, but most of the series takes place in the early years. Then we want to do Tales of the Underworld, the Asajj Ventress stories, Maul Shadow Lord, at least Season 1. We don't know about where Season 2 takes place yet. If you want to fit in the Droid series, it's not canon, but throw it in for fun if you want. Then we got Jedi Fallen Order, Forces of Destiny, Kira episode Triple Cross, Solo, a Star Wars story, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Tales of the Empire, Barriss Offee episode The Way Out, Jedi Survivor, Tales of the Jedi, Ahsoka episode Resolve, Tales of the Empire, Morgan Elsbeth episode The Path of Anger. And then we have, the fun part is that Andor and Rebels take place at the same time. So I broke them up to make it nice episode chunks to watch, so that way you still get those full stories, but I kind of put them together so that you can kind of lock them neatly together like a puzzle. So here we go. We got Andor Season 1, Rebels Season 1, Andor Season 2 episodes 1 to 3, Forces of Destiny episodes Jyn the Stranger, and Sabine and Leia for Bounty of Trouble, Rebels Season 2. Then Forces of Destiny, Sabine and Ketsu team-ups of Newest Recruit and Crash Course, and the Ahsoka episode A Disarming Lesson. Those are all set after Season 2, Episode 20, before Season 2, Episode 21. Then we have Forces of Destiny's Hasty Departure with Sabine and Hera, and Accidental Allies with Sabine and Jyn, which takes place after Season 2. Andor Season 2, Episodes 4 to 6, and then 7 to 9. Those are separate blocks of years. Then we have Rebels Season 3. Now here's where I mixed up the order just a little bit. Andor Season 2, Episodes 7 to 9 take place in the middle of Season 3 of Rebels. Episode 18 of Season 3 of Rebels is essentially Part 2 to Andor Season 2, Episode 9. There is a character that leaves from Episode 9 of Andor Season 2 and then goes right into Season 3, Episode 18 of Rebels. So I recommend that you just watch Andor first, then watch the Rebels episodes. All right, Forces of Destiny, Sabine art history was set after Season 3, Episode 16 of Rebels. Forces of Destiny Jin's Trade is next. Season 4 of Rebels. Andor Season 2, Episodes 10 through 12. Then we got a Rogue One, a Star Wars story, Episode 4, A New Hope. Then Forces of Destiny Beasts of Echo Base, which is a Leia short that connects to a deleted subplot from Empire Strikes Back about Wampas being in the base on Hoth. So it takes place before the movie. Then we got Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. Then we have Forces of Destiny, Luke, The Path Ahead, which is set during Luke's training on Dagobah in Empire Strikes Back. Put in Star Wars Outlaws, both the main story and the DLC. If you want to put in the Ewoks TV show, toss it in there. Then we have the Forces of Destiny short, Bounty Hunted, with Leia getting her Bounty Hunter armor to lead into Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Then we have the Forces of Destiny episode, Leia Ewok Escape, which takes place during Episode 6. Then the Forces of Destiny episodes, Leia and Hera in an Imperial Feast, Hera in Chopper and Friends, and Leia in Traps and Tribulations. Those take place just after Return of the Jedi. Then we have Battlefront 2's main story. Caravan of Courage and Ewok Adventure and Ewoks Battle for Endor can place here if you so wish. Moving into the Age of the New Republic, we're going to start with the Star Wars Squadrons video game, then the Tales of the Empire Morgan, The Path of Hate short, Mandalorian Season 1 to 2, Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian Season 3, and then Rebels Season 4 Episode 15's final scene is sort of retold during Ahsoka Season 1, even though the time of day is different, everybody's wearing different outfits and the hair is different, but they have like half the same conversation. Look, it's entirely possible they retconned that scene in Ahsoka Season 1. It's entirely possible they just repeated actions as people. I don't know, I'm just putting it there for a note. Ahsoka Season 1, I also believe overlaps with Mando Season 3. There's a moment where Grogu sees Purrgil, and if you've seen both things, you'll understand kind of what I mean. All right, then Skeleton Crew takes place here. Then the Mandalorian Grogu movie. Millennium Falcon smugglers run the Mandalorian Grogu mission. Takes place at the same time as the movie. And then we have Ahsoka Season 2. All right, jumping forward to the Age of Resistance. We're going to start with Battlefront II Resurrection, because the earlier Battlefront entry was for the main story. Then we have Forces of Destiny, Rey the Hapabor Hazard, and Rey Run Rey. Takes place prior to The Force Awakens. We got Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and Forces of Destiny, Rey Sands of Jakku, BB-8 Bandits, and Tracker Trouble. Then there's Perilous Pursuit, which adapts a deleted scene from Force Awakens, and all 4 of those take place during the movie. Star Wars Resistance takes place here with the final arc of Season 1 overlapping with events from the middle of Force Awakens. Then we have Episode 8, The Last Jedi. Then the Forces of Destiny shorts, Rose and Shuttle Shock, Rey and Porg Problems, and Chewbacca and Porgs, all set during Last Jedi. Then we have Millennium Falcon Smugglers Run, the Resistance mission, Rise of the Resistance, Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, and then eventually Star Wars Starfighter. That's everything. That was a lot of research. I hope you appreciated that. So I have no concept of time and how long this video is, so I'm not going to hold you all too much longer. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them in the comments section down below, but keep it civil. I know Star Wars has this reputation in the fandom of being incredibly toxic and hostile, but we don't have to do that. We can just enjoy Star Wars. It's Star Wars. It's fun. We should all be enjoying it. So keep it civil down there, but have a good time and ask any questions and concerns, and just be nice about it. That's all I ask. So on that note, though, if you did enjoy it, please hit the like button, hit subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss out on future uploads. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can join the Discord server. I'm pretty active in that if you want to ask direct questions about how I placed things or anything else, honestly. Go do that. If you'd like to help support the channel and make videos like this possible and get personal early access to videos and special shoutouts, join as a channel member. Let's give some special shoutouts to some of our channel members. Special shout out to these Captain Tier channel members: GameBroker84, Daniel Baglos, Jay Wyatt, Zanuck, Kevin Marquis, Gone Wrong, Peter Jacobson, PM Maltese, Kryper TEM, Orion Optimus, Sanji, and C. Hoffman. Thank you all for your support of this channel members and viewers alike. If you so wish, I'm on social media on Blue Sky and Letterboxd at Soundout12. You can also find my wonderful graphic designer on social media and Discord at DarkClaw643, and you can find Hero Club at hero-club.com for entertainment, news, and more. And until next time, this is Soundout saying, may the Force be with you.